Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Dr. Bridget Young from babyformulaexpert.com, coming to you from my backyard to talk about Similac formulas. I really hope this goes well. Full disclosure, we are outside because Vaughn has a nasty diaper rash. So he's having a little diaper-free time exposing his nethers. So I hope he doesn't need me to pick him up. Anyway, here's hoping for the best. Got my beer. The weather is so nice. It's so nice to be outside. So here's my notes. I will not go through all that detail. And today we're going to talk about Similac's line of formulas. Last week we talked about Enfamil, and I got some feedback that was really helpful to hear how each of the formulas by a single name brand differ. And so if you're thinking about switching or really having a hard time understanding which is the right choice for you to start out with, this is it. Here goes. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of their main formulas and try to give you context of how they differ. Similac's very similar to Enfamil in that they market in sort of two lines, the routine feeding line and then I don't remember the term they use. It's something like, tummy troubles or sensitive issue line. But these are all standard formulas for healthy term babies. So their big formula, the one you see all the time, is Similac Advance. It's their, #1 standard infant formula. And it's a pretty great formula. The protein source is what I always start with, is cow's milk, non-fat milk plus extra whey. So it's got that extra whey to make the ratio of casein to whey more like breast milk. The carbohydrate is 100% lactose. The fat blend is as follows: high oleic safflower oil, soy oil, coconut oil. Note: no palm oil. There is no palm oil in any of Similac's main formulas. This is a pretty big differentiator between Similac and Enfamil and Gerber. So if avoiding palm oil is a big deal to you, Similac is the place for you to start. I'm not going to mention fat blend again because all of them have that same blend, except some have high oleic sunflower versus safflower oil, which I'm not even going to get into. It's basically the same. So all the fats are equivalent. Perfect. One less thing we have to talk about. My husband just came out. Hey, baby. I started. Next, DHA and ARA. I'm just going to say this once for all the formulas as well. Every single one of Similac's formulas does have DHA and ARA and is from the single cell source. So they do have a hexane extracted version of DHA and ARA. I have a whole happy hour about that. My take is I usually don't worry about that until you have a baby who's having a reaction to something. Then I do consider it. But if you're just starting out, it's almost universal, and all of Similac's formulas have it. So we won't mention that again. And then the extras, Similac's big thing is that they add lutein and lycopene to all their formulas. These are non-essential nutrients. They're not, technically you can't even call them a nutrient per se. Like lycopene you hear about, it's one of those, sexy ingredients in tomatoes. It's an antioxidant. So these are great extra things. They're in breast milk. They don't make or break my decision. It's nice that they're there. I guess that's all I'm going to say about it. And it's in all their formulas. So again, we don't have to handle that again. Next, Advance has nucleotides, L-Carnitine, and Taurine. I'm just telling you this. These are also non-required extra things that are in breast milk and are usually found in formula. Some people try to avoid them if they think their baby is a very sensitive infant. So I'm just going to tell you that it's there. And then I'm going to hit every single one of Similac's formulas except their soy come in a non-GMO version, which is fabulous. Soy is the most important formula to me to try to get non-GMO, so that's a bummer, but at least all the other ones do come in a non-GMO version, which is great, and so I don't have to compare that again. So there's your Advance. It's a very standard formula. I was going to say all really similar to Enfamil standard formula, except it has lutein and lycopene, no palm oil, and Advance has a prebiotic, galacto-oligosaccharides. Sometimes you see this referred to as GOS, so people call it GOS. It's a prebiotic. It's not a prebiotic that's found in breast milk, but it does do the job of feeding bacteria and helping babies grow more healthy bacteria in their gut. So I love it. I think it's great. And it's great that it just comes standard and you don't have to like pay extra for a special version that has it. It just comes with their standard formula. Bam. Okay, there's Advance. The next one is Pro Advance. So this is a relatively new formula. I have a whole happy hour on Similac's new Pro formulas. They have Pro Advance and Pro Sensitive. The nice thing is their Pro Advance is identical to Advance with the following exception. The sexy thing about Pro is that it adds 2FL, which stands for 2-fucosylactose, which is a human milk oligosaccharide. So it's another prebiotic, but that is actually found in human milk. It also helps healthy bacteria grow, but it has some other really cool immune function in the baby's gut. It helps fight pathogens and helps the immune system to develop. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's real expensive, y'all. So I think we'll start seeing it become more pervasive in other formulas now that it's in one. It does cost you a pretty penny at this point. And the only other difference is instead of galacto oligosaccharides, Pro Advance has fructo oligosaccharides. It is a difference I don't think it's worth mentioning, to be honest. So basically they're identical, except Pro Advance has this HMO, the 2-fucosylactose. So that's Advance and Pro Advance. I'm going through these quick. I hope you can just wait to hear your formula and hear what I say. Okay, the next one is Similac for supplementing. So remember, Enfamil also had a formula marketed for babies who are also receiving breast milk. Like somehow those babies should have different needs when all formula is made to replace breast milk. So I don't really like that very much. And here's the other thing. This cracks me up. If you remember from Enfamil, their 4 supplementing formula was actually really different from their standard formula. And it was Gentilese. It was basically Gentilese with a different color, so different people would buy it. Similac has taken a totally different approach for their 4 supplementing formula. It's a great formula. In fact, it is Advance with just this one difference. Similac for supplementing, on the list of ingredients, there's, once you get down into the nitty gritty, there's soy lecithin and ascorbic acid in one. In the other one, it's ascorbic acid, soy lecithin. But ascorbic acid is vitamin C. They both have the same exact amount of vitamin C. So that's no difference. And then for supplementing has 10.8 grams of carbohydrate per 100 calories, and Similac Advance has 10.7. This is my favorite phrase. This is like less than a fairy wing flutter on a scoop of formula. So Similac Advance and Similac for supplementing, for all intents and purposes, especially if you're using a scoop, are 100% identical. So that is 100% marketing. The good news is, I'm sure they'll phase out one of them, or if one becomes more expensive, or you're traveling and they don't have one, you can feel really free to switch to the other and not worry that your baby's gonna have a bad reaction because it's a different formula. I got sun right in my eyes, I'm sorry. It's much better, we'll see. So that's my big take home. If you're using Similac for supplementing, don't feel bad about switching to Advance. And don't feel bad that you felt for marketing that it was somehow different, because they market it as if it's somehow different. That's no one's fault. And feel otherwise, feel good. It's a great formula. Intact protein with extra whey, 100% lactose, palm-free oil blend, prebiotic, lutein, lycopene. It's great. It's a fabulous formula. Okay. So the next one we're going to talk about, I actually have very firm opinions about, and that is Similac Organic. Now, I always say there's no such thing as a bad formula, and if you are feeding Similac Organic and your baby is doing well, I want you to tune away. Just don't even listen. The only thing that matters is that your baby is healthy and doing well. If you are not feeding Similac Organic, and you're considering, I'm going to say, pick another organic brand. And this is why. The protein source is just non-fat milk. No extra whey. I have no idea why they would do this. I like extra whey because it's more like breast milk in the ratio, but it also is going to have whey as the liquid part, so it's going to have less curdle and empty the stomach faster, which is going to make for likely easier digestion and less messy spit up. That's for sure too. So I don't understand why there's not extra whey in there, and I don't like that. The carbohydrates, the only carbohydrates on the list of ingredient are maltodextrin and sugar. Now there will be some lactose that just comes with the non-fat milk, There's no way to know how much that is because the company doesn't release that information. So, but the point is it's going to have a lot of corn-based sugar, and then also sugar, which has fructose, without the protein being partially hydrolyzed. So there's really no reason for it to be there. So I don't like that either. So that's like two big strikes for me against this formula. Fat blend's the same. DHA and AR, yes. Here's the other thing. It does have fructooligosaccharides, which is a prebiotic, but to be called an organic formula, it has to be at least 98% of the ingredients organic. The fructooligosaccharides source that Similac uses must not be organic because their organic formula has fructooligosaccharides far lower on the ingredients, so it's less than 2%. This means they can still call the formula organic, but it means that their organic formula has a lot less prebiotic than their other standard formulas. And to me, it's just not cool that you're kind of, you know, those babies are getting less prebiotic, less of the amount that you decided was ideal, just so you could call the formula organic. Like, I don't know, that just rubs me the wrong way. So those are the reasons I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I love that it's organic. I do, you know, prefer if you can have an organic formula, go for it. But in this case, honestly, if you're just starting out, I'd rather have you use, just based on ingredients, Advance, non-GMO, than the organic. Sort of hands down. So that's my big take home about Similac. They have several strikes against their organic formula, in my personal opinion. I think I mentioned everything about it. It does have nucleotide, carnitine, and taurine. Okay, next is Pure Bliss, which is their newest, I think it's their newest formula. It's gotten real popular. It's really similar to their standard Advance. In fact, it's pretty much identical. Yeah, it's pretty much identical, except Pure Bliss uses milk from grass-fed cows, and they also use fresh milk. So they use a liquid skim milk to start their formula base as opposed to a skim milk powder. I've done a whole happy hour about Pure Bliss. I really like it. I think it's great. A lot of people have had really good luck switching to it. It's a long topic to talk about grass-fed and fresh milk, so I'm not going to get into that here. Like I said, I do have a whole happy hour about it, so you can, you know, it's on YouTube and on Facebook. So look that up if you're interested. But otherwise, same thing, great formula. Non-fat milk source intact with extra whey, 100% lactose, palm-free, oil blend, galacto-oligosaccharides, no lycopene, but again, I don't know, I leave that. I could do without it. And nucleotides, L-Carnitine, and Taurine, yes. It only comes in non-GMO, and like I said, grass-fed. So it's a pretty great choice. And that wraps up all of Similac's standard formulas. So I know I'm blowing through these quickly and throwing a lot of ingredients out at you, but like I said, Juan's not wearing a diaper, and we're gonna color eggs after this, so it's like 2 strikes against me to really move this along. Okay, so next we're gonna hit the 4 formulas that are specialty formulas somehow. So the first one is Similac Sensitive. So like I said, they market this as a sensitive formula for babies who are having some kind of issue. Their version of sensitive, I hate the word sensitive because each company changes a different ingredient to try to address a sensitivity, but it's not all the same. So switching from like Enfamil sensitive to Honest Company sensitive to Similac sensitive are actually all very different formulas, and those are big switches for your baby. So, and how are parents supposed to know that? So I don't like the word sensitive, but that being said, that's what it's called. They have chosen to try to make this more easy to digest by removing a lot of the lactose. So this is a lactose reduced formula, significantly reduced. The protein source is just milk protein isolate. This means 2 things. One, there's no extra whey, and also if it's just milk protein isolate versus non-fat milk, you're going to have a lot less lactose that comes along with that. And then the carbohydrate to go along with that on the ingredients is only corn syrup and then sugar. Sugar is sucrose, which is a dimer of both glucose and fructose, meaning this formula, the point is this formula provides kind of a significant number of sugar or carbohydrate from fructose. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. If you do, I don't really like so much fructose being a source of carbohydrate for babies so young, or adults for that matter. So I don't really like this sensitive formula very much. I do think lactose reduced formulas have their place, and I do think some babies, especially premature babies who were born prematurely or babies who are coming off of a diarrheal illness, really can benefit from a lactose reduced formula. But I don't like that this one has no extra whey and it's really lactose reduced. So if you're feeding it, it's working, great. That's always my disclaimer. If it's working, then don't listen. If you're just considering it, I think there's some better options out there that are lactose reduced, at least to start with. And the rest is pretty standard. The fat blend is the same. DHA, ARA, does have galacto-oligosaccharides, the prebiotic, cool, lutein, lycopene, all of them. I'm going to stop saying all of these formulas have nucleotides, L-Carnitine, and Taurine, if you care. And it does come in non-GMO, which is great. So that wraps up the sensitive. Their sensitive formula is lactose reduced, but I'm not a huge fan that the protein source is very similar to the organic. It doesn't have extra whey, and it's a protein isolate, which is fine, but it just means there's not extra lactose coming in with it. So this formula is very minimal lactose, which I think is a little overkill. I mean, all babies can handle at least a little bit of lactose. All right, next, pro-sensitive. This is just like the advanced to pro-advanced. We have sensitive, now we have pro-sensitive. Pro-sensitive is exactly the same as sensitive, except they've added that HMO, the 2-fucosylactose, which is really awesome. I love that. And then instead of galacto-oligosaccharides, they have fructo-oligosaccharides. So I won't dwell on it. If you're using sensitive, if you're like, well, should I upgrade to the pro? If you were a millionaire, absolutely, hands down. It's better to have it than to not. Like I said, it does come with a really hefty price tag, and there's no generic version that has this HMO yet. So you will be stuck paying a lot of money, and that matters. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, next is their total comfort. So this is Similac's partially hydrolyzed formula. Enfamil had 3 different versions. Similac only has the one. So if you're looking for a partially hydrolyzed formula and you're married to the Similac brand, this is the only option you have. It's a partially hydrolyzed whey protein. So Enfamil's all is a partially hydrolyzed mix of whey and casein. Similac's is just whey. I like both, at least if there's some extra whey. Both are great. There's good research. There's a lot of research on 100% whey, partially hydrolyzed formula, and it's all pretty promising for a variety of outcomes. So I like that protein source a lot. I'll leave it there. The carbohydrate on the label is just maltodextrin and sugar. So again, this is going to provide a fair number of carbohydrates from sucrose that's coming in with the sugar. Maltodextrin is just glucose. There will be some, again, residual lactose that's coming in with the protein, but you won't see it on the label anywhere, and I don't know how much it is. I'll have to call the company at some point. They don't release that information. I don't know if they'd give it to me. I'll call at some point. So not a huge fan of that, but again, it's their only partially hydrolyzed protein formula. So if you are stuck with Similac, maybe if you're on WIC and that's what you have in your state, this is what you have, so it's fine. The fat blend is exactly the same, and everything else is like pretty much right along the lines with what they have, DHA and ARA. It does have a prebiotic, which is pretty cool to see with a partially hydrolyzed formula. It's galacto-oligosaccharides, and it does have the lutein and lycopene, so pretty good. And it does come in a non-GMO version. So all those things I really like. Pause. I'm drinking my homemade beer again. Every time I take a sip, I'm like, God, that's so good. It was not good when I first started, but I've really, really nailed it down. I'm like batch number 8. Okay, the last milk protein. Oh, let's see, Jennifer, let's see. Any thoughts about these primary Similac products now having? No, I did not mention this, and I kind of skipped it. So Similac's primary products now have 19 calories per ounce versus 20 calories per ounce, which used to be the standard. They did this in response. So she's asking like, what's my thoughts on that? They did this. My first thought is I applaud them for keeping up with research and trying to. They did this in response to all the research that basically shows that formula-fed babies gain weight faster and are at much greater risk for obesity and metabolic disease later in life than breastfed babies. And this risk is thought to come from them gaining weight pretty quickly in their first couple months of life. So Similac reduced by 1 calorie per ounce the calories in their formula, and in attempts to try to help formula-fed babies end up with healthier long-term outcomes. So I like that they're trying. You can't reduce it too much. Babies need calories. The difference between 19 and 20 calories, especially if you're using a formula or a powdered formula and you're making your own scoops, you guys know, like, it's the middle of the night. Like, do you level the scoop? Are you like tapping it against the side? Is your husband making it? My husband's right here.
I don't want to make formula.
So, but all those things are probably going to have way more effect on how many calories per ounce is in your bottle than the 19 versus 20. So the reason I didn't mention it is I don't think at this, it doesn't make or break my decision either way of like Enfamil versus Similac or Gerber versus Similac. So, but I like that, there are really good people that work at all these formula companies, and they are trying, like, as an industry, we're trying to make changes that help formula-fed babies grow more like breastfed babies, which is the ultimate goal. So that's an awesome question. I wasn't going to talk about it, and I'm so glad you brought it up. Thank you. I hope that all made sense too. So, and I'll just add as a side note, if you have a premature baby and you're on, the premature formulas, I don't even talk about them. They're totally separate, and they have total different caloric needs. It's a different beast than a term baby. So I'm not going to go there. For term babies, the 19 versus 20, both are very safe, very healthy, but doesn't make or break me either way. Okay, the last one is for spit up. This is kind of the analogous Enfamil is the AR. So, and it's really similar. I don't really like it for the same reason that I didn't like the organic. The protein source is just milk protein isolate, so with no extra whey. So it's just the protein, which means there's not going to be a lot of lactose, a little bit coming in kind of attached to the protein from the cow's milk, but it's with no extra whey. So if your baby is spitting up, I don't understand this. I got to talk to one of their food scientists. Whey empties the stomach faster because it doesn't curdle, it remains liquid, so it can kind of squirt through the sphincter that releases stomach contents into the duodenum, or the small intestine. So I don't understand why they would want a higher casein ratio that curdles and takes longer to leave the stomach if your baby is suffering from any kind of regurgitative issue. So I don't get that, and I don't really like it for a baby who's prone to spit up, which is who they're marketing to. And then the carbohydrate is corn syrup, modified rice starch, and sugar. I don't know why there's not more lactose in this formula. Lactose shouldn't cause a baby to spit up. Corn syrup and sugar, you guys know my thoughts. It's okay. The sugar particularly because of the fructose. The modified rice starch is the thickener. So that's, I explained in last happy hour. They're trying to work with gravity. If they can keep the formula thicker in the stomach, it's just harder to come all the way back up. I'll add a note here that I added last time. If you are mixed feeding, if you are breastfeeding and using one of these formulas, either for spit up or AR, it is the only time I tell people not to mix bottles, because you have enzymes called amylases in breast milk that digest starch. So when you mix for spit up with breast milk, it digests the starch, and so then the formula is not thick anymore, which is supposed to be the whole point. So just so save yourself the time and don't do it, or just know that you're kind of wasting the starch. All right, so for those are the two big components of the formula, and I'm not a huge fan. The starch is fine, but I'm not a huge fan of the sugar and the milk protein isolate with all the extra casein if you've got a baby that's got a reflux issue. The fat and everything else is pretty standard. Oh, yeah, I made a note for myself to say. So this formula is 100% identical to Sensitive, except they add rice starch. That's the only difference in both the ingredients and the amount of the vitamins and minerals. So if you're going back and forth from sensitive to force spit up, it's not that big of a switch for your baby. So that could be a positive. Okay, the very last formula is soy. And I've just got a couple thoughts. I did a whole happy hour comparing Similac, Enfamil, and Gerber's soy. So if you're on soy, I highly recommend you watch that one because it's way easier to interpret soy ingredients in the context of other soy formulas. The protein is obviously soy protein isolate because this is a truly lactose-free, dairy-free formula. Duh, which is the point of soy formulas. So soy protein isolate. The carbohydrate is 80% corn syrup, 20% sugar. This means 10% of the carbohydrate will be fructose. I'm gonna leave it there. I don't really like that much fructose. And then the fat blend is the same. It does have DHA and ARA, and it does have fructooligosaccharides. For some reason, like their organic, the fructooligosaccharides is just a much lower concentration. I don't have as firm opinion on this because soy protein is just so, well, I can come over here. Soy protein is so different than milk protein. It's going to interact differently in the stomach. It's going to interact with the prebiotics differently. I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows what the perfect concentration of prebiotics is in the context of a soy formula. We know a lot more about dairy-based formulas because human milk is technically dairy as well. So it's less, but it doesn't concern me as much or doesn't bother me as much as the organic formula being less because that's a dairy-based formula. So I'll just leave you with that. But if you switch to soy from a dairy-based Similac, you are getting less prebiotic with the soy. So just note that. And the only other huge bummer is that the soy is the only Similac formula that does not come in a non-GMO version. And we all know soy is, the vast majority of soy in this country is genetically modified. I don't normally take a huge stance on GMOs, but if you're feeding your baby soy formula, you likely had some kind of reaction initially. And so, let's eliminate GMOs as a potential irritant in the first place, and you can't do that with Similac because it's not an option. So that's just something else that I'm sure is on their to-do list, and I think they should step up and get a non-GMO soy version out soon. Okay, I'm gonna wrap that up. That was a lot of talking. And thank you, Jennifer, for the awesome question. Share this with somebody who's using Similac if they're thinking about switching, or I know a lot of different states, if you're on WIC, Similac is the contract, and so it's the only formula you have available. So I hope this is really helpful for you mamas in that condition too. If you guys have a question you want me to handle at another happy hour, leave it in the comments or shoot me an email, come over to the website, and I will handle it in an upcoming happy hour. Thank you so much for joining me, and we're gonna go color eggs now, and I'm gonna put a diaper on Vaughn right away. We're just playing with fire at this point. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.